Welcome to The Secret Life of Mothers. My name is Maggie Gordon Walker, and I'm the founder and director of Mothers Uncovered. Join us as we explore and share the incredible stories of mothers when life has thrown at them challenge and, in some cases, trauma. Discover how the skills we learn in matrescence, which means becoming a mother, can teach us about more than motherhood. They teach us also about unconditional love, resilience, and acceptance. I'm joined today by Jane Upton. Jane is a playwright. She wrote her first play when she was 30 after an 8-year career in marketing. Her first play, Bones, had a sellout run at the Edinburgh Festival, which led to her leave her marketing job and pursue a new path as a writer. It's been a road of many tangents, and 14 years on, she's married and has a 10-year daughter and a 6-year-old son. Jane, hello and welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
A pleasure. So let's start by asking, where in the country are you based, and is this the same area as you grew up in?
Yeah, I'm based between Nottingham and Derby, in the Midlands, which is where I was born. I've been here most of my life. I did leave briefly for Aberystwyth University, but I had maybe regrettably now fallen in love 2 months before I went. So I ended up quitting and coming back and going to a local university. And I left after I wrote my first play, which was a bit of a crazy time in my life with lots of change. And I ended up doing something where I thought I was in a novel. I quit my job, went to live in the Isle of Wight, got a job by the sea, being a waitress for a summer season, and started writing full time. And I lived in the Isle of Wight for 2 years. So apart from that, I have stayed in my hometown, close to my family.
Well, all of that does sound exactly like a novel. Quitting uni for a relationship, going to a seaside for a relationship. Yeah, it's the path of a creative, I think. Just like, yes, I'm going to live in this what I imagine how life should be. Well, that's just what life was. You can't, you just have to
Yeah,
roll with the
exactly.
punches, as they say. So, Jane, what would we need to know about you to understand how you would describe yourself as a mum?
Ooh, well, I've got two children. I live very close to a big extended family, full of big characters who have had a massive impact on my life. And I think that has a big, strong influence over how I parent and how I'm a mother. We're all very close. We speak our mind. There's not much politeness in the house. Um, and I think probably a lot of people find this, but a lot of the characteristics you have really become illuminated when you become a mother. And I didn't quite grasp the fact that because I am a very kind of disorganized person, I don't like routine. And this has become very obvious since I had children. So I'm quite a spontaneous mom. I'm adaptable. I don't mind kind of doing things on a whim and kind of making up plans on the day and things like that. So that's the kind of mum I am. I'm not necessarily the mum that gets to places on time, which annoys my daughter a lot. And my husband is quite the opposite to me. He is very routine driven. He's a very good planner. He's got loads of lists. He's very methodical. And that has massively been illuminated since we had kids. So the things, I think everyone finds this, but the things we kind of really loved about each other before we had kids and that weren't that much of a kind of friction now are like quite, yeah, they're quite hard to kind of marry together. So we have to work hard to do that. But we do balance each other out a bit when we're in an appreciative mood. Otherwise, it's quite difficult. But yeah.
Yes, I am also a list maker and I'd
I,
struggle with spontaneity. It's interesting,
yeah.
isn't it? And I would stake a bet on the fact that if you were very organized and list driven, your daughter would have a problem with that. You're always going to
Probably.
grumble, whatever mum's doing. It's like, well, that's the wrong thing.
Yeah. No, we were saying because the other day it was after school and it was in the summer. My daughter had football. My husband was taking her, and I said, I think I might take our son camping tonight. And he was like, what? I said, yeah, I think I might just take the pop-up tent and go camping tonight in Derbyshire. And he was like, we haven't got anything ready. I said, I know, but it's 4 o'clock and we can get a bag ready and stuff. And he was just like, it was alien. He was like, why would you do that? And then eventually got behind it and we had a good time. But it's those kind of things that, yeah.
I'm trying to be more because I think a lot of life passes you by. If you're always like, no, this wasn't supposed to happen because life is unpredictable. So I am
Yeah,
trying to be more Jane in that aspect myself.
and I'll try and be a bit more you. I definitely see flaws in the way I operate. Flipping heck, it causes a lot of chaos. I'll say that.
Yeah. Do you have quite a few siblings? Are you one of
I've
a?
got a brother and a sister, and we are so close. Like we would pretty much say anything to each other. No one pushes my buttons like them. But my brother lives around the corner and helps like with school run and stuff. We both help each other. And
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, it's great. It's really good, and it's really become apparent since we've had children how important this family network is.
Oh, it
Um,
it totally is. I think that's why I set up Mothers Uncovered because it's more common now for women to have babies later, and they've moved away often from
yeah,
that family network, and suddenly they're like, I don't have my village around me.
totally.
So,
Yeah,
you can't rely on those people for all of the chores, but at least you feel you've got somebody you can pop round and
yeah,
see. That's
yeah,
the idea. Okay, so let's get on to some of your story, which led to the writing of your plays. So, your son, who's now 6, the birth was quite chaotic, and then a day later, you discovered he had a life-threatening condition. Can you take us through the various stages of what happened?
yeah. I'm feeling quite emotional today. I don't know what it is, hormones. I don't know, but I was thinking about this earlier, and I got quite emotional. So apologies if I do. But
No, that's why we're here to hear all
yeah,
the rawness.
I think you get used to telling it, and then sometimes it catches you, doesn't it? Or perhaps
Mm.
it's like when you processed it more, and you're like, oh my god, because normally it feels like someone else's story when you're telling it. Yeah, I think at the time they were really, I don't know if it's the same now, but they were really pushing home birth at the time, and they approached me and were like, we think you're a good candidate for home birth, and we're like really trialing it a lot more and stuff. And I thought, oh, do you know what? It really suits my sensibility. Like I can imagine being in front of the roaring fire and having this baby. And so I went along with that. And also the way they told me about it was because in the hospital, I remember the midwife kept leaving us a lot and stuff, and it felt not that safe really necessarily. But anyway, they said there'll be 2 midwives that are dedicated to you, which in hindsight, how could there be? But anyway, that will stay at your house from when you go into labour. So that's kind of what I'd imagined. And we hired a pool and put it up, and we practiced putting it up in the house and filling it and all this. And we had like this plan. Anyway, what happened was I went into labour on Christmas Eve. I think it was a week late. So there was already loads of pressure on the midwives because it was Christmas Eve and like the different departments were closing and stuff like that. So they had to like, at one point, I said, I feel like I'm close to giving birth. And they said, no way, you're not far enough dilated. And I said, this is kind of what I was like when I gave birth to my daughter. And they said, you'll be fine. We've got to take these bloods to the clinic or whatever. So we'll do that and then we'll come back and it's not too far and the traffic shouldn't be bad because it's Christmas Eve and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, okay. And my husband's like, I wish in hindsight I'd have said, no, you need to stay. But I just don't think they could. So they left and then it just ramped up massively and we started to kind of panic a bit between us. And he was ringing saying, oh, my wife's gone like into the final stage of labor. And they were like, right, okay, don't panic. We'll talk you through it on the phone. This was somebody else completely at the hospital.
Wow.
So they started to talk us through it. And I was there on the like sofa, like, and yeah, and then I remember from my first birth them saying, don't push too early, or you'll tear and everything. So I didn't know what I was doing, like in hindsight. And I held on, like thinking if I push and because they said you're not very dilated and all this, I thought, am I going to damage the baby? Will I rip myself open? I was really scared. So when people say listen to your body and all that, it's not always that simple. So I like was holding on and then they came banging on the door and my husband left me and went and got them in and they came in and they literally panicked and went, oh my God, you need to push, you're holding the baby in. it was such a panicked atmosphere. It was horrible, and I can remember it now like viscerally, and I think I've really like parked it. And so he like came out really fast then. And they were saying, oh, you've been holding him in the birth canal. He'll be snuffly because he's been like held in there. And then basically they were like, oh, you need stitches, but we don't want you to have to go to hospital now, but none of us can do stitches. And then 2 more midwives turned up. It was like a joke because they were changing shifts. So then there were 4 midwives, none who could do stitches. And I was holding the baby and they were just talking amongst themselves about Christmas. And I remember going, this is like,
Was it Christmas Day by this point?
Christmas Eve still.
Still Christmas
I said,
Eve.
this is like that stupid joke. But I was like, none come and then 4 come at once, but they didn't appreciate the joke. And I could hear them like hushed in the corner of my room talking about what are you doing for Christmas, all this kind of stuff. And eventually one said, well, I have trained in stitches, but I've never done them. But it's probably better that you don't go to hospital, so I'll do them. So then there's this hilarious scene, not hilarious, of me on our bed holding the baby. Well, 4 of them have got a big light on my vagina. Well, one stitching me. So it wasn't kind of what I expected at all. I felt totally battered. Then my daughter came home. We set everything up for Santa. Went to bed, but when they left us, they said the baby will be snuffly because he was held in the birth canal, so don't worry. But then I tried to feed him and stuff, and he fed a bit, and he was more and more snuffly. But it sounds ridiculous, but it was Christmas Eve. My daughter was home. We were exhausted. They'd told us he'd be snuffly. He started to have a little grunt, which now obviously they say, don't they, like beware of the grunt. But he started a little grunt in his breathing, and we were like, let's take 1 hour each to watch over him in the night awake while the other one sleeps. We did that all night, and he seemed okay, but he wasn't really feeding or anything. And then the next morning, about 9 o'clock in the morning, and obviously we'd been up all night, then my regular midwife came, who'd been my midwife throughout. And straight away she took one look at him and she goes, yeah, we need to get an ambulance. And I was like, oh, really? And she was really calm, but it took 1 hour and 40 minutes for the ambulance to come. We found out later it had been round the corner, and basically because we had a practitioner with us, we were low priority, even though she rang about 4 times saying. So anyway, eventually these 2 guys came who were hilarious, but like comedy characters. They were like between them joking and stuff, and they got him, and we started off to the hospital, and suddenly they said, oh, can you ring your husband because we need to put the blue lights on, because my son was obviously like struggling more and more. Got to the hospital, they took him off for a lumbar puncture and said, you probably don't want to watch this, it's quite harrowing kind of thing. So they'd obviously had to like curve him round and push him over to do the lumbar puncture. Then he had an x-ray. Then I got put in this room with him with my husband, and it was Christmas Eve. Everyone had tinsel around their necks, Christmas jumpers on. It was surreal. And suddenly this doctor came in and she went, we know what it is. We've seen on the x-ray, his guts have grown into his chest. He's got a hernia in his diaphragm. We know what it is. And then they just kind of left, and I was like, what does that mean? And then suddenly he literally turned grey he just slowly turned grey. And I was like, oh my God, like he was literally dying in my arms. And I was like, can someone help me? Can someone help me? And
it's okay, take your time. How upsetting.
And this woman, he was lovely, but she was one of the volunteers on the ward, and she had like a Christmas jumper on and tinsel, and went, oh, you all right? Oh dear, that looks bad. I'll get someone. And I was like, and then suddenly they'd like 10 people just whisked him out my arms. They ran off. They took him to this, because we were in, I can't remember why, but the slab for him was like adult size, this resuscitation slab. That's what it felt like. I don't know. And he's on this little thing, and then literally 10 people just surrounded him for around about 7-8 hours, keeping him alive. And they kept coming to me saying, so his windpipe's so tiny that the pipes, the tubes we've got for ventilation are literally the same size. So it could damage his windpipe. Are you okay with that? And I was like, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, we have to do it or else he's going to die. So, but we just need you to approve that that's okay. And I was like, okay.
That's not a choice, is it?
And then literally this anaesthetist, who's top of his game, spent 7 hours just squeezing like a little thing because they couldn't put him on a proper ventilator. At that point, they didn't have one or whatever. I don't really know. And then me and my husband really remember this moment where this anaesthetist, not anaesthetist, I can't remember what his job was, but he'd come from a Christmas party at home and these double doors opened and we said it was like this angel walked in. He came in and he was really calm and like absolutely this a manner that I really appreciated at that time. And he told us everything and he showed us this big x-ray and basically it's called a congenital diaphragmatic hernia. And about 10 people that day said to me, oh my God, this hasn't been picked up on the 20-week scan. This never happens. He shouldn't have survived. And I thought it was the most horrible thing to hear at that point because I was just in a whirl. I didn't know what was going on. And he showed us this x-ray and basically his guts had grown into his chest. It must have happened after the 20-week scan. So there's a hole in the diaphragm. And quite often when it's caught early, it's because it's a lot of a bigger hole and all the organs grow into the chest. And it can cause heart failure, everything. It's very serious and people have really or lifelong repercussions from it, all different things. And it's grim reading, to be honest. But he had like probably the best version of it, and the hole was so small that it hadn't started to grow until after the 20 weeks. So his lungs had developed to a certain extent, but then one of his lungs on the x-ray was like this big and the other one was this big. And the whole intestine was there. So the operation is they push everything back down and then stitch the hole. And quite often when it's a big hole, they have to put like a mesh patch on it. And that then erupts as they get older and they have to and it's really quite, not nice for the child or the parents. But with this one, they could stitch it because the hole was small enough. So we also kept getting told, you've got the best version of this, you're really lucky. We got told we were lucky so much. And at that point, I couldn't hear that at all. And yeah, I had so many, it's really hard to think of now because he's 6 and he's done so well. And it's still there's repercussions, different weird things from it. And there's lots of things we have to keep an eye on. And obviously I'm pretty damaged in terms of when he's ill, I get so overwhelmed and panicky, but he's doing so well. But I just remember that day just thinking, why the hell have we had another child? What have we done? We've absolutely risked our luck here. And we've all I thought was the future's just going to be so awful. And I remember just not being able to control my thoughts at all like that. I was not good at, right, come on. And I thought, God, I'm such a failure as a mother because a mother's job here is I need to protect this child. And all I could think was, why have I done this? Why have I done this? It was really selfish. But it's hard to look at now. And also it's very hard to trust the future and to I made a little video of us going to the hospital for his checkup last week. And I put a song on it. And I remember thinking, oh, I shouldn't put the song on it because it makes it feel like I'm okay with it. And then something bad will happen because I've let my guard down and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a long-term thing to come to terms with, I think.
Definitely. So was it right that the way in which you birthed him impacted him, or would it have happened anyway?
He had that condition. The thing that happened was, so I don't feel like we were given the right care from the birth.
Yeah.
But I don't think they could have picked that up because what happened was I fed him some milk. That filled his intestines a bit. That crushed the lungs more. So he then couldn't breathe. So I think they stayed to watch me give my first feed or whatever, but obviously that would have taken a bit of time. It was just the whole thing of Christmas and all that. But the weird thing as well was, so the midwife who was there, who I really remember her face and everything about her, and I feel bad because she's got a really hard job, but I felt so let down. And then on Boxing Day, I was in neonatal. I was devastated. I was swollen. I was in pain. I was exhausted. We had no idea what was going to happen. He was on a ventilator. And the midwife rang me and went, hi, just ringing to see how everything is. And I was like, do you know I'm in neonatal? And she just went, oh my God. And then she just quickly got off the phone. She just hung up. She must have been crying, I think.
Wow.
And then a few weeks later, I was in Asda and I saw her at the checkout and she saw me and I literally just went into this fit of shaking. and just ran away like with my trolley. And she like looked away, and I felt really bad about that as well, because but I'm also really angry with her. And I know it's not her fault. It's
But
just
when something awful has happened, it's just like, yeah, and you feel you've been let down by people who should have been looking after you.
yeah.
And then they don't even acknowledge that afterwards.
Because I spoke to my midwife and I said, she just hung up the phone, and she went, I think she's absolutely devastated about it. And I thought, yeah, and I'd like to know now if there's I'd like to know now, I probably should try and get in touch with her or something. But I went to my doctor about a year on and just said, I feel like I need to put in a complaint, because not against them, but just because this shouldn't have happened. And if people are being told about this home birth thing, there needs to be more preparation, and there needs to be more understanding of what it is. And she was lovely. My GP is amazing. I hardly ever can see her because she's always inundated. But she said, you must do this. And then the pandemic hit, and I just
yes, it did. It sounds from that they were treating you like, oh, we must build up our home births. Well, this, like you say, you're a candidate, and it's just like,
yeah.
but you're a person. You're not an experiment.
Yeah,
Jane, that sounds very traumatic for you, and I hope your son continues to thrive and his health keeps stable for you. I see, it would be a continual anxiety. It's quite understandable.
Yeah, thank you.
Obviously that was a very traumatic start, and that meant the first few years of his life were very impacted, particularly as you say, the pandemic came. So can you talk us a bit through those pandemic years and how it was for him and for your daughter?
Yeah, so basically when we left neonatal, so he had an operation when he was about 4 days old, all of that. I mean, it's such a long story. And anyone who's been in neonatal knows that one day in there feels like 10 days. It's like this little secret world that's constantly operating in this half light. And I was just like, also like really privileged to kind of see into that world. And just now I think so often about all those people in there that are living that every day. And we got out after 2 weeks. I went to my bedroom and forgot I could leave my bedroom for about 4 days because I'd been so like traumatized in there. And then they said to us, try not to take him to any groups or any crowded areas for a year, so that he's got a chance to recover. His lungs have got chance, because the lungs are the only organ that continue to grow till they're 7, I think. So they've got chance to sort of like grow and heal a bit. So I spent the first year pretty isolated, very nervous, really scared if my family were holding him, if anyone had a cold or anything. So after a year, and we had like a little birthday party for him at my husband's parents, obviously at Christmas Eve. And then I started to think, right, I need to like try and socialize him a bit or whatever, or just start to get out a bit myself, try and build up a bit of confidence. And then this pandemic hit, which was a lung disease. And I was like, is this a joke? Is this some kind of like test? But there was a bit of a relief in it, because we just sort of hunkered down in the house. God, I say relief, that's some sort of golden lining, but silver lining. But for me, there was a bit of a relief in that I had an excuse to be isolated with him. And we did have some nice times just together in the garden. And my daughter, because she was at school, she'd started school. For the first year, I'd constantly go and get off him, don't lick him, don't hug him. So in the pandemic, because we weren't with other people, they were able to just massively bond. And like, I've got so many photos of them just like rolling around together. And it was such a new feeling to let her just be free with him. And they're so close now. And she's gone through loads of stuff from her, and she's amazing. But yeah, it was just a relief in a way to be isolated, but just this horrible, it just compounded the anxiety, the health anxiety. I felt like anytime we walked outside, there was a cloud of COVID over your head, like you couldn't step outside. So it messed me up mentally. And I remember actually my husband, not that I couldn't do it myself, but I didn't feel like I could leave him. My husband booking me an Airbnb like when he was about 2.5 and saying, go away, because I felt like I was going mad. I'd literally just lost myself in this anxiety. And so he booked me this thing, and I went away, and I remember just crying loads, I've given up drinking now, but drinking loads of wine, and I started to pour out this play that I'd started to think about. I made loads of notes, and I only went to Derbyshire, and I just sat in this thing, and I remember just crying through writing these scenes, and that was kind of. I remember going away and just thinking, God, I've forgotten this feeling of being on my own, or like being like connected to myself. And it was the first bit of writing I'd done since I had him. So yeah. Oh no, yeah, it was the first kind of new piece of writing I'd started since I had him. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, you've moved us neatly on to you as a writer. Um, so you wrote the play. Was that the one that you had difficulty getting that accepted, or was that the current one? Was that
No, it was the woman.
right?
The woman. Yeah. So what happened was after I was in this like heightened state of anxiety, lost who am I was walking down the main road near my house, probably looking awful with a buggy, and my buggy was old and skanky. And unbeknown to me, a guy I went out with when I was 15 saw me, and then later shouted to my brother, "Oh, I saw your sister pushing a buggy up Derby Road. I expected more from her." And my brother told me this. It's kind of him. And I remember just thinking, just being absolutely effing furious that he had passed this judgment, but also just devastated because that's what I felt like. I felt like all I was this servant, not to my children, to anxiety. I was just pinned under anxiety. I was a servant to it, and I had nothing to give. And the fact that he had just said that without any care or thought. And also, I've spoken about this before, but I went out with him when I was 15. And there's this whole thing at the summer I turned pretty, but I'd got myself a Rachel haircut. I'd got this bomber jacket, satin bomber jacket, chippy trainers. I'd been doing this flab to flat in 30 days from Woman's Own, I think I found in my mum's magazine. And I'd basically spent the summer having a bit of a makeover. And I remember going in and like suddenly getting attention from boys. And I was like, oh my God, this is what life's about. And it was the 90s. And that's literally what we were sold life is about. More magazine was my Bible. And I've recently looked at what the kind of policy for readership was for More magazine. It's the girl who's aspirational, but really all she wants is to get married and have a family. Or something like that. I've probably totally misquoted that, but it was like the end goal is find love, keep love. Loads of the articles were like why your boyfriend prefers your ex and how you can change his mind, and like how to deliver the perfect blowjob in 10 easy steps. And I loved it. Oh, position of the fortnight, which I used to study and think, will this ever happen to me? And so this boy was who I went out with, and he was like a bad boy, and I was totally besotted by him. And so the fact he then went and dealt that and saw me with my hole in my leggings and my, I was just
Had
like,
you
wow.
felt when you were dating him that he was kind of you were lucky to have got him, or were you?
Yeah, I was so insecure, massively insecure.
Yeah.
But also when I was dating him, I was the main part in the school play. I could sing, like I was it was just totally internal. Like I hated my body, I was embarrassed by it. And I just thought all of my currency was in being found attractive, basically. And it was a new thing. And I was like, this is amazing. But we had this really formative, like 3 month relationship. People say I'm kind of so connected to those years. And it's because I'm constantly trying to unpick how they relate to me now. But
It's hugely important that pivotal, that first kind of time when you fall for someone, that does shape how you see
yeah,
yourself for a long, long time, for sure.
yeah. But he is in the hometown still. He's got kids, like, and he just said, I expected more from her, more than having kids in her hometown. She had all this promise. This is how I read. She had all this promise. She was going to do good things. I imagined her doing all these other things. And I was like, what does that mean? What did he want me to do? Like, go and do something amazing so he could say, oh, she's someone I got. Do you know what I mean? Like, but also it just felt like this massive truth in society of the way women are viewed, especially if they live where they were born and have children. It's like you are worth nothing. You have given up any aspiration or ambition. That's the end of your life. Oh, that's all the potential gone. You can't possibly do anything after that. And I felt so furious because I had given everything for that. I think this was when about a year in or whatever. And I just thought, could there be anything more important at this moment than me giving everything to my son to make sure he's healthy? How can you just pass that judgment? What does more mean, and what does it mean that what have I turned my back on? And but also I obviously, on the flip side, felt completely wounded. My ego was dead. I was like, I wanted to preserve myself in that time for him as much as he. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want him to see the end of my story.
It's a whole smorgasbord of different things, and also it wasn't like you had the conversation. It was through the conduit of your brother. So you don't know in what tone it was done. There maybe have been a bit more that he said that your brother, he only passed on that part. There's so many unknowns.
Out of proportion and used it for writing a play. I know, I'll never know.
But it did lead to writing the play. So, in a way, that's the positive we take from it, is it spurred you on to write. So tell us a bit about the play and its progress into the world.
Yeah, so I went away and wrote a scene based on a fictionalized surreal scene, as if we had a meeting and met, and what we would say to each other. And I just pushed it, and it was more about the theme and the idea of it, not about me and him. It was about, what did you expect? Like, what does this comment mean? And I wrote that when I went away to that Airbnb. Bang, 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 bang. It was very therapeutic. And then I wrote a scene because I was flirting with this idea about writing about motherhood. And I had such an ick feeling about that. I was like, such a misogynistic feeling as well. I was like, who the hell wants to read about motherhood? I can't stand it when people bang on about motherhood. And I remember my feelings about motherhood before I had children, about, oh God, I'm never going to be like that. I'll always go out, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then you get the harsh reality of what it's like. But so I wrote this scene based on lots of conversations I'd had with different people in the industry over the years about a woman trying to pitch a play about motherhood to two men, two producers, and going, I want to write this play about motherhood. And they're saying, but why don't you write this? Why don't you write that? We don't really want to show women having babies. It's very reductive. We want to show women that are feisty and kick-ass. And the fact that this idea is mutually exclusive, you can't be both. And so I just wrote, again, like this surreal pushing the boundary scene of her pitching this idea, because I was trying to deal with it myself. Like, do I really want to do this? And I felt like I'd struck on something bigger than a monologue about motherhood, I guess. It was about massive societal structures, systemic secrets, the spaces you have to squeeze yourself into, this low-level disgust that I feel is there for mothers. And so, then I wrote those two scenes. And then I did try and go to somebody that I was working with at the time. But to be honest, I was in a nightmare state and I'd been not particularly reliable. And I showed them these scenes and they went, there's amazing drive there, but this just isn't for us right now. And I think they just thought motherhood's not where it's at. But I'd had lots of other discussions with people in the past saying to me, I remember I had a pregnant character in a play I wrote, and they said, oh, I don't know why you have to have a pregnant character. We don't want to keep showing women pregnant being murdered. We want to show a different story. And I felt like constantly I was trying to leapfrog these feelings that I've got and these messy things I haven't unpicked to show a different version of women. That for me, I felt like a little bit, especially now I was in this state, I felt as a like too much of a expectation that I couldn't fulfill. And I wanted to say, no, come on, I need to unpick this version, because I feel like I've got a lot to say and I feel like I've got a lot of worth, but I feel like who I am is too messy and too reliant on what men think of me, too kind of stuck in those formative feelings. And I want to understand how I can get over that to become this strong woman that people want us to be. So that's why I wrote the play. And I couldn't get any interest for it. I did get interest from the people who produced it now. Is run by a woman who's a friend of mine who's a mother, and she massively connected with the scenes I'd written. And I'd written by then a messy draft, and she massively connected. She goes, I would love to make this play, but we don't have a slot right now, and da-da-da. And there was no kind of commitment. but then it won there was a soft commitment, I guess. It wasn't programmed or anything, but then it got shortlisted for the biggest playwriting prize in Britain, the Bruntwood Prize, which is huge. And like there was 14 of us out of 2,000 entries, and I went to the ceremony and all this. But just the feeling of getting selected for that, I was like, oh my God, I've got something. And
so maybe people do want to know about mothers after all.
Yeah,
It's a real affirmation of what you'd written.
Yeah, it was. And it was like sanity. It was literally like sanity to feel like this topic that I was writing about had connected with lots of different people on the judging panel of different genders.
It glitched a bit. What was the name of the
It's called the Bruntwood Prize for Playwriting, and I didn't win, and I think New Perspectives absolutely would have produced it anyway, but it was just another boost and another sort of backing of the play, really. So yeah, that was great. And then New Perspectives, who are based in Nottingham, run by a brilliant artistic director called Anne Harrod-Jones, who produced and directed my first play. She just said, like, as soon as she read it, felt like I'd articulated loads of her feelings. She was so deeply moved by it, and she was like, it's personal, I need to make it. And then I really wanted to work with, in theatre, we have something called a dramaturg, and I'd never understood the relationship before, but I'd really wanted to work with this woman called Sarah Dickinson. She came on board, she was incredible. She opened up loads of stuff. She's also a mother, and we think very similarly on things. And she was just an incredible conduit for my feelings, what I wanted to say. She helped me kind of understand and bring it out. And we all worked together. Yeah. So it was really nice having that triangle of mothers working on it, really. But then we had like rehearsed readings. We had Jason, who is the lead singer of Sleaford Mods, who's this massive Nottingham band who've gone stratospheric and global, and he's like this proper Notts lad. He was one of the readers on it because he's also an actor, and he just said, effing hell, when I read this, I went straight to my wife and said, I'm so sorry, and it's like really made me understand so much. And it's had so many amazing reactions like that, and so deep, and so just having that ability to connect on that level with so many different people has been like a savior for me, in a way, like the most beautiful distraction, because it is like the most incredible validating feeling to write something like that is so personal, but also about these big things that we're all grappling with. And to have all these people like just come and straight away get into these deep conversations. Oh my God, why did you know what my brain was saying? You put it on the stage. It felt such a relief. And I was like, it's amazing.
That's great. I mean, we've done that because my background is as an actor as well, and we've created shows just based on things that interviews that mothers have said, or writings, and we've kind of created rehearsed readings, and we did do a play, a sort of talking heads thing, and it's so powerful because people can sit and go, yes, I know. One of the people who reviewed it said they heard somebody saying, oh, I know exactly what she means when the character said what it was.
And that's like a lifeline.
Very powerful.
It's like a lifeline for people sometimes when you feel buried alive, don't you, quite a lot when you're so deep in motherhood. To have someone express your feelings for you, even if you can't necessarily voice it yourself, is like breath, isn't it? It's like air. It's important.
Yeah. You mentioned when we originally talked about the mum tax. That was something that you thought about. Do you want to elucidate that a bit more?
Yeah, so when I was writing it, I realised that there's not a part in the play where the mother says, but obviously motherhood is amazing and fulfilling and beautiful and all that. And I do feel like that, don't get me wrong. Like, obviously there are so many incredible things about motherhood. And it is a privilege in so many ways. But as I was writing this play, the state that it came from, I really wanted to honour that state of that time. And it just didn't feel like in this play there was a moment for a scene that did celebrate that, which sounds quite sad, but that's just the play it is. And I kept wondering whether I should engineer that in. And then I read something about a thing called the mum tax, which is where anytime a mother says something negative about their child or whatever, they feel like this responsibility to say, but also obviously I love them so much and they're amazing and it's incredible. And especially for artists, I've seen that if an artist wants to write something negative about motherhood, it's like the mum taxes, you need to kind of show the other side or make sure people. And I thought, I don't want to pay that. I want to like try and write this without that because it doesn't feel natural to put it in. And also, I do feel like there's a resistance from audiences to, not all audience, obviously, but like to invest in characters that they find unlikable. And I think that is absolutely dialed up to 11 if that's a woman with children. Like once you've got children, you are secondary. And so if you're there bemoaning that state, it's very hard to invest in that character. And so I was just interested in that really. And I started to almost do it as a bit of a rebellion. Like, I'm not going to put that in. But my mum did come and watch it at press night. And at the end, I said, what do you think? And she said, and she loved it, don't get me, but her first thing was, I just found it a bit sad that there was nothing about how beautiful motherhood is, which I think was a lovely thing for her to say. And afterwards she said, I know that that's not the play for it. I totally understand that. But I suppose as a mother, it's sad to feel like if your daughter's not getting this beautiful experience, whatever. And I think she's coming at it as a mother. But anyway, afterwards she was like, sorry, I don't need, like, I loved it and it's amazing and blah, blah, blah. But then, yeah, I just thought it was interesting. That was her initial response.
Yeah, it did, because as worldwide, people have a very uneasy reaction to a woman who is not totally extolling the wonder of motherhood at all times. And like, you know, it happens all the time. You look at any kind of drama. If there's a mother who's not like it was, oh, it kind of gets to this, the Medea thing. It's like, oh my God, she might as well kill the children if she doesn't say how wonderful it is. It's like, I was thinking as you're talking, it's a bit like the Bechdale, is that how you pronounce her surname? The film, you know, where you have to have two women. Is there a scene where they don't talk about a man? It sort of feels like the equivalent of that. Is there a moment where they don't have to say, "Oh my God, it's not wonderful being a mum"?
Yeah. It is complex though, because you know, like deeply ingrained is this feeling. If a mother is, I suppose, just like out and out anti-motherhood or whatever, your heart goes to the child, doesn't it? I guess we must have this inbuilt protection for children, which is, oh God, those poor children. Like, if she hates it so much, what happens to them? And like, how is it affecting them? And I think that probably is a perfectly natural response to that. But it's then hard.
Certainly, any mother who says, you know, I'm not happy, it's just like, well, stop moaning. You should be grateful that you have this child, which is, you know, a lot of what we do in our work is saying it's okay to express reservations, resentments, all of that, because you're feeling them, because it is hard work and it's important to acknowledge that. But it's a totally. Delicate balance between all of these.
How do we help people that feel like that if you don't dare speak its name, you know? So yeah.
Well, good for you though, for sticking to your guns, because I'm sure people, you know, you when you hear that, you know where it's come from, and then if you are there talking, you know, publicly when you're interviewed like here, you know, of course you love your children, but it's important to be able to have a space where that's not the thing that it's about.
I remember we did get a review that said something about the fact that that's not in there, or she's constantly moaning or whatever, and she isn't constantly moaning at all. And a woman who came to see it said in response to this review, never once did I question that she loved her children. It's funny that that's someone's read on it, because never once did I question whether she loved them. It wasn't about that. And I was like, thank you. Yeah, that's the point.
Good.
It's hard to see beyond that for some people, isn't it? It's interesting, isn't it? That's the whole point of it. It's to get reactions like, and people to talk about it.
Definitely. So we like to think here about post-traumatic growth rather than stress. So obviously the trauma of your son's birth, which, you know, as you say today, is very raw for you. How do you think it changed you and led to the work that you do?
I got asked recently to contact somebody who's got postnatal depression to say it gets better. And in that moment, I was having a bad time, and I felt like I don't feel like the person to do that right now, because I think that growth is it goes in so many, it's not straight line, is it? And sometimes it's hard, and sometimes, but there's sometimes where you just really feel, I don't know, not privileged, but just the richness of having these life experiences and what they open up, and the beauty of being able to see all those other women that have gone through similar things that you were blind to before, or like the depth of that experience, like going along. And I remember I made this little thing once saying, when you have children, it's like cutting yourself open and then hiding the blood from everyone. And suddenly your eyes are open to all these people that are hiding the blood, like you get it. And there's that, but also just the richness of human experience. And motherhood brings so much of that, and so much kind of understanding of yourself and other people and humans. And I think that's just growth, isn't it, as a human? And it's an amazing privilege to be able to grow and learn and change and accept change. And I do think it's what makes life worth living. And so yeah, I see the growth in that way. I see the growth in my work, in that I feel more confident, like putting this play out, for instance. I feel more confident on listening to my instincts when something I think is interesting, whereas before I'd be trying to find a story that other people would be interested in. And now I'm like, actually, there's so much interest in just the minutiae of human experience. And obviously human experience is not the same for everybody, I understand that, but just like the depth of it and the way it changes you and you grow and stuff. So I think that I feel like I've got more understanding and empathy to put into my work. And it also just makes you think, God, what else am I going to learn? What else have I got blinkers on? Like, and you know, with your children growing, every stage is different in opening you up to a whole new level of experience of the human experience, basically. But yeah, and at the minute my parents are pretty old, but healthy, and I know I've got all of that stuff to all that growth. And yeah, I think apart from it battering you, it also opens you up, and it gives you that depth of empathy that I think is just amazing to have in the world, I think.
Yeah. So your daughter was born in 2015, is that correct?
Yeah.
So if you were to write a letter to yourself the day before with some advice or, kindness or whatever, I think you wrote it down. Would you like to read it out or paraphrase it, whatever
this,
suits?
didn't you? Okay, this is what I wrote. Dear Jane, here you are in the garden in early labour. It's a hot May evening and you're in the rented bungalow, the weird brown house full of pine with the most beautiful garden, curated by a woman who has now died and a man who has dementia. They had their children here and now you will. You feel excited and full of youth still. Later, before labour really kicks in, you'll put some wellies on and get your husband to take naked pictures of you outside the greenhouse. These are the last moments of just you as a girl, you as child, you as woman, the before. Let me tell you, it hurts. Birth is painful. You've watched the videos and you've got the TENS machine and the playlist, but nothing can prepare you for this. They say listen to your body, and I would advise you to do that, but you won't, because it's an ethereal thing and birth is scary for anyone less than an earth mother. Be kind to yourself. What you don't realise is the way your brain works now, the things you struggle with, routine and organisation and reasonableness and decisiveness, they will all follow you into motherhood. You won't suddenly become this fully grown, mature, accomplished adult who sees the meaning of life. People say all sorts of things like you'll become more efficient and use your time more wisely, and suddenly things you thought were important will become meaningless. This is not true. You will still be chaotic. You will still leave everything to the last minute. You will still hate routine and you will still stress the small things. Be kind to yourself. What makes you amazing now will still be there. I'm so emotional today. Embrace those things: humor, spontaneity, adaptability, empathy, deep feeling. As much as you can, own who you are and don't let it chip away at you. Motherhood is scary. You don't realize that yet. Taking full responsibility for a baby is terrifying at times, a lot of the time. People tell you it comes naturally, but it doesn't always. If you have an overactive imagination and obsessive tendencies, they might get worse in the middle of the night when you've had no sleep and your baby is crying in pain. Don't swallow those fears, talk openly and explain how you feel. You are not insane. It is just your personality on overdrive. Understanding your personality and how it might be triggered by things can help you put them into perspective. People will tell you to listen to your instincts, but that's a lot of pressure. Find people you can trust to reassure you. Your friend who's a nurse, your cousin who's a doctor, they know and love you. Your first birth and the subsequent years will be pretty normal. You will still feel like your life and your identity has been exploded, but that's to be expected. You will cope and even thrive. You will love the long days of babyhood and toddlerhood with your little girl and all the new experiences. You will be nervous and anxious and afraid, but not in an extraordinary way. The second birth will be different. It's going to go wrong. You'll spend 2 terrifying weeks in neonatal and then years dealing with the post-traumatic aftermath of that. I'm talking to you 6 years later, so I can't even tell you when it ends. It's all an evolution. You'll feel completely lost and alone and terrified. Fight or flight will be your default mode, and it will wring you dry of everything you've got. Luckily, and eventually, you will feel lucky, not in a simple way. It'll be tied up with a panic in your gut and a fear of the future, but still a sense of luck too. Luckily, you will get to a state where you're not always scared, just sometimes, but it's going to be very complicated and your marriage will be tested, possibly beyond what it can cope with. Let's see. Because also your husband's personality will become exaggerated by trauma and fatherhood, and all the things you loved about him, the opposite qualities to your own, will become entrenched. His need for plans and routine will crash up against your chaos, and it will be hard not to feel angry and resentful, both of you. I think my advice is this: be kind. Try always to approach everything with love. It's easy to say and it's very hard to do, but I think it is the answer. Your children, your husband, yourself, approach with kindness and love. We are still trying to figure it out. Things you thought might be simple will become hugely complicated once kids are involved, and that's as it should be. But be kind and write. Write about it all. Be honest. It is your pipeline through the earth with a megaphone on the end of it. It's where sanity will find you. Keep writing.
Wow, Jane, that's amazing. I often ask people for their matrescence disc, something, like desert island disc that they would associate with motherhood. But to be honest, I think we should just set some music to what you've written, and that is your matrescence disc. Jane, just tell our listeners or our watchers, because your play Woman's coming out now, isn't it, in London? Can you just tell people where it's going to be? Oh, look, there it is. For those who are listening to it, there a lovely red play script with that in brackets, Woman by Jane Upton. Where is it going to be performed?
The Park Theatre in London, in Finsbury Park. Oh my gosh, I should know. It starts in September. I think it's the 24th.
24th. I think this will be coming out just about then. So, and it's on for a month. Is that right?
On for a month, yeah.
Great.
Please come and see it.
Thanks so much, Jane.
Thank you so much.
It's really lovely listening to you, and thank you, in your day for feeling a bit raw about it, to talk through it and share the story of what you went through.
Thank you, and thanks for all the work you do. It's amazing.
Thank you.
All right, lots of love.